Welcome to the Wasteland. I'm Sebastian from Cinematic Reviews, and thank you for joining us for another little bit of what we call News from the Wasteland. This is our weekly podcast where we gather around the campfire and discuss our thoughts on the proverbial hellscape that is pop culture. Today I am welcomed by a small but very close bit of friends and collaborators who have made the journey into the Wasteland with me in order to talk about today's topic. Boys, would you care to introduce yourselves to the world?
Hey guys, what's up? This is Diego here at Cinemageddon Reviews, back again for another set of adventures, and hopefully we don't get eaten by death claws this time.
Oh, Jesus, not this time again.
Hello, everybody. Emmanuel here, back again after seeing a rare copy of this movie called Bullet Train that I found surprisingly in good condition in the Wasteland.
Oh boy, how was that copy of it?
The movie still looks good. I kind of find surprising that this movie's kind of secretly a Deadpool movie if Brad Pitt replaced Ryan Reynolds.
It's funny that you bring up Deadpool here, because today's topic is actually going to be talking about comic books. And we actually have a pretty sizable array of different comics for each of us to talk about. We each chose our favorites, some of which are a little closer to our hearts than we expected, and we even went as far as to pick the very first comics that we've ever read. Boys, how about one of you takes the reign, and then we can continue from there?
Let's let Emmanuel be the first of us.
Of course. I mean, Emmanuel was the one who pretty much jump-started this after he got into a conversation with you. So what do you think, Emmanuel? Do you want to start us off?
Well, no mind if I do, gentlemen. All right. Well, let's see. For this episode, let's talk about the comics that are like my personal favorite. I'm gonna select three from the big two: one Marvel, one DC, and another it's an indie. All right. First, DC, Batman: The Court of Owls by Scott Snyder and artist Greg Capullo.
Yeah. Of course, you're gonna bring up.
It's really good.
Here.
Yeah, it is my favorite, and it came into my life when I wasn't reading much comics because one, I didn't have like a phone. Well, I had an iPhone, but I just didn't knew about Comixology or that type of world of digital comics, and I didn't have a comic book store near me. So, and I was going to college, and right next to that college was like a comic book store, Metro Comics. And lo and behold, it was the same year when DC announced the New 52. And like all the other comic book nerds, for me, it was like, cool, a good way to jumpstart this. It didn't have to worry about continuity. And boom, here it is. Like, I read Action Comics, Green Lantern, Swamp Thing. But the one that really stuck the most was Batman, The Court of Owls. Because of, well, it's Batman. Yeah, Batman is like one of those characters that he's overused, yes. But you can't deny that he basically brings in the best writers and artists in the comic book business. And he has better stories than any other, more like good stories than any other DC character. And this was one of them. This is basically now sits up on the mountaintop of great Batman works. Like Court of Owls. It's a horror story. It's a conspiracy thriller. I mean, in each page, like the more you turn the page, it's like a thriller, man. You just can't stop reading, and sometimes you basically sometimes have an emotional reaction from it, horrifying, disgusting, to the point where it's really scary at one point when the book gets very, very dark.
Huh. I wanted to point something out. The minute you said that the New 52 was a good way to provide a fresh start to new comic book fans out there, I just want to say that that's a load of bullshit, because anyone who knows the New 52 knows that they abandoned that idea the second the first few comics began popping out, and it's literally Green Lantern and fucking Batman already having a connection and knowing each other. And also, we got the damn Legion lost and the Titans teaming up for, what was it, the Culling or something like that? But anyway, I gotta say, I have not read The Court of Owls, but I have seen several adaptations of it in animation. I have seen The Court of Owls being adapted into animated format before, and everything I've seen about The Court of Owls is goddamn terrifying. Like, both as a concept and as actual antagonists in the world of Batman. They're basically the Batman mythos' version of the Illuminati, or like the Ku Klux Klan, just this sort of underground conspiracy world of nutcases that are basically pulling the strings and causing havoc around the world that they exist in. And I think that they're a pretty huge and pretty terrifying threat. I've been very curious about the comic origin of theirs. So, how different is the comic compared to every adaptation that has tried to bring them onto the small screen? Because we haven't seen a big screen adaptation of it yet. Hello DC.
Yeah, I would say they went like the adaptations from the Court of Owls. They were very faithful. Like they didn't stray far from what the Court of Owls are, and most of the adaptations are pretty good. Except for the part where you said about conspiracy nutcases. It's more of the ultra rich, like the 1% running the whole thing, like uber rich
Oh,
of
Jesus.
Gotham.
So they're the 1% basically running everything and essentially being the ones in control. Like, they're basically a bunch of snooty rich assholes. Hence the term, hence why they're basically using the owl as a sort of persona.
Yeah, like from corporations, even people that Bruce knew from being the CEO of Wayne Enterprises. I mean, at one point, he in the comic he goes to find his rival, this businessman that he knows, and he goes into his office. It's a button, and beneath it, it's memorabilia of owl stuff, including a mask, suit, everything, a bunch of photos that are basically like graduation photos from the Court of Owls. I mean, this stuff goes back to the 19th century of Gotham.
Yep, all the way back to the very beginning. And, not to. I guess I'm going to go into minor spoilers here, if you guys don't mind. But they even have ties to the Wayne family, and that's all I'm going to leave it at. They're a very powerful and very terrifying, seemingly unstoppable organization. That's really one of the things that the comic really plays up.
Yeah. Like they have their fingers everywhere, the heck. And to the point where they're so mysterious they become like a folk, like sort of like a scary story, like children's scary stories, like
An
ones that
urban
you would tell
legend.
an urban legend where you tell your kids to sleep like if you behave, but if you don't, you behave. Or if you don't, the talon would go into the night and snatch you from your bed. Yeah. Talent mean they're the elite assassins.
And those
Yeah.
guys are not to be messed around with. And apparently in the comic, they almost killed Batman.
Oh yeah, to the point where they best him, and to the point where they kind of mess him up on a psychological level, to the point where you really feel like Batman is not gonna win, and he really is gonna, to the point where you really believe that he will lose his mind, that he will legitimately become a nutcase.
I mean, if he hasn't already at this point, it's kind of surprising that he hasn't.
Oh, rest assured, he is. He just refuses. He just refuses to admit it. He projects his psychosis onto other people.
pretty much.
Also,
But he,
not to take away from what you're saying there, but I actually had a similar moment happen to me at work once upon a time on my old job. So it's not like I found out my boss was secretly like working for like a evil crime organization or anything like that. But on my last day of my last job before I got fired, which ironically I was already going to provide my resignation because I got accepted on another job anyway. I got called into my boss's office so that they can reprimand me for not giving them the numbers that they were demanding, even though you guys are giving me literally no tools to work with here. So what the fuck you guys want me to do? But anyway, I am just there, sitting there, ready to take any stupidity that comes my way. And lo and behold, as I am carefully snooping around and I notice on my boss's desk, what do I see? Well, it's not the Court of Owls, but I definitely did see that my boss was a goddamn Trump supporter.
Good lord.
Yep. And immediately I was horrified and now scared, thinking, yeah, no, I totally screwed up. I'll try to do better next time. What the hell do I have to do to get out of this conversation?
yeah.
I don't blame you, man. Those guys. I mean, if there was ever a definition for a modern day widespread cult, this would be it.
Oh, Jesus.
Pretty much.
Not even the Cult of R.
Yeah.
Kelly could be.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. God. But anyway, going back to the subject matter. Yeah, Court of Owls is great. Side note, I already said one, but I wanna do like a very quick like honorable mention from DC. The other
We can
All Star.
before we get into this, let's not try to rush this thing. Keep in mind, we have plenty of time to talk about honorable mentions and stuff. Is there anything else that you want to add about the Court of Owls?
Honestly, I think I already said enough. Like Diego, you want to add something on the Court of Owls?
Listen, Sebastian, if you haven't read The Court of Owls, I would highly recommend it. It is, without a doubt, and I don't say this lightly, one of the best Batman comics out there. You know, we were just talking about what constitutes a bad Batman comic and what constitutes a good Batman comic. This has no plot armor for Batman. It has no, like, prep time excuse. There is no because I'm Batman and I'm always prepared for anything. No, this is as bare bones of a Batman comic as you can get, both in terms of, like, the subject matter and also, like, the quality of the story.
That's all that I needed to hear, and now I'm convinced. Because the thing about Batman that always kind of prevented me from reading any actual Batman comics is that Batman has become so hyper utilized and so what's the word here? Basically, he's been built up as this larger than life being to the point where he basically has no weaknesses. He's the most powerful being in whatever story that he's in, even if the story has nothing to do with him. And when you have a character, however he may be, that is this powerful and this difficult to stop, that makes the character very, very boring to me. Because if the character has no weaknesses and no challenges, then there's no conflict and therefore no story. And when you take that away, you're left with a story where the main character is so powerful that the story basically has to take a back seat in order for them to show how cool and badass they are. But at the end, they end up sacrificing a very good plot that could have been in there as a result of it. And that's always been my problem with Batman and the way that they write him as this sort of larger than life figure. Ironically, people
Blame,
seem to have the same issue with Superman, but I find that it's not the same issue because so many people just don't really know how to write Superman, and they don't really like to think of the many different possibilities.
yeah,
I agree. Yeah, that's always
I
kind of been one of the. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Emmanuel.
yeah. I would say I blame Grant Morrison for when he was working on Batman before Scott Snyder came and took over the comic. He was the one that kind of brought all the idea of Batman being super prepared. Old Batman basically is prepared for anything, and he's the ultimate badass.
I mean,
Yeah,
shit. Like, I can accept that Batman would be powerful enough to take on damn near anything, but you cannot expect me that a man would be so strong, so smart, and so wise that he can basically see into the future and predict any possibility from happening and then be prepared for it. Because even eventually, the man will be caught with his back pants down and will be pushed down to the side and will have to try to find a way to survive that. And the way you're all describing the Court of Owls comic, it's basically the comic I've been waiting for. Finally, a Batman story where Batman is basically a victim instead of a superhero, like an uber badass that's being hero worshipped to the point of basically being unkillable.
yeah, and all that criticism is now into this. There's now a new writer in the Batman comic book right now, and basically the story is that all this thing about Batman being the ultimate badass and him being prepared for anything, yeah, he did all that because he put all his knowledge into this one AI that got compromised, and basically this AI basically is the personification of the over powerful Batman, the Batman that we know, that him being the larger than life, that nothing can stop him.
Christ. It just
Yeah.
and honestly, that kind of stuff. It reminds me of. Did any of you read Identity? The Brad Meltzer series, Identity Crisis.
I did
I
not.
I only heard the reputation, never had the chance to read it.
Okay, well, there was a moment in that story where, as the heroes, I'm not going to get into too much detail if you haven't read it, but basically the story goes that the wife of the elongated man was violently murdered in front of their house, and the Justice League, unable to figure out who it is, goes on an investigation to try to figure out who the killer might be. And during their investigation, they end up getting into a fight with the villain Deathstroke, or Slade, as that stupid Teen Titans show, not the Teen Titans Go, the original Teen Titans, what used to call him, ends up getting into a fight with all of them and beats the ever loving shit out of them in comedically over the top fashion. Like, we're talking to the point that he was able to overpower. Well, hold on. Was it Hal Jordan? Yeah, it was Hal Jordan. He was able to overpower Hal Jordan's Green Lantern power ring because he was able to use his willpower over his and was able to disable it. Bullshit.
That is
I-
plot armor if I've ever heard of it.
Yeah,
and
I think Jeff Johns kind of retconned that idea when he took over Green Lantern and Batman made an appearance in his first storyline.
Jesus Christ. And the only reason for why that happened is because Brad Meltzer was a huge fan of the original Teen Titans comics, where Deathstroke was the main villain on. That's basically how I always imagined everybody basically writes Batman, as this sort of super powerful, cannot be defeated, omnipotent bastard that's basically Homelander if Homelander was just a guy who had money.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. And God forbid Homelander ever basically becomes a goddamn politician.
Yeah.
If he hasn't mirrored a certain former president enough already, I hope that doesn't happen. No.
Oh my god.
No.
At least he had the good sense to say fuck you to Stormfront? Stormwell? I keep forgetting that bitch's name. That bitch, yes. Oh god, that was fucked. Anyways, before we get into any more off topic here, Diego, do you want to continue us off?
Sure. Okay, so I had originally prepared just 3, but since we'll have more time, I'll find some more comics to talk about. But let's get into my first one, which is Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. I'm talking about the original Secret Wars from 1984. It was a 12-issue miniseries that was incredibly influential for Marvel and still is to this day. In fact, they just announced a Secret Wars movie for 2025, and I hope that the original is what they'll hopefully stick more close to, and not the atrocious 2015 remake that was basically just a Fantastic Four story with a whole bunch of other characters in the background.
I'm kind of a fan of that story. I have a book. It's basically the best event Marvel has ever done. But yeah, it's not an Avengers like Marvel Universe story. This is basically the conclusion of the writers' tenure on the Fantastic Four.
And quite frankly, it shouldn't have been. It should have been an ensemble piece like your classic Avengers comic book compendium. But anyway, let's just get right into it. So in case anybody was curious as to what the actual plot of Secret Wars was, it's very simple. A bunch of Marvel heroes and villains are abducted from Earth and transported to an alien planet that the villain of the story, who's named the Beyonder, he calls that planet Battleworld. And basically, he says this: okay, so everybody pick a side, and you guys are going to fight. And then whoever wins is going to be able to collect all of these riches and technological advances that I've planted on this planet so that you guys can use to fight each other. You guys get to keep them if you win, and you get sent home. And a bunch of these heroes basically were changed forever. It was a very influential series for Marvel Comics, especially in the 80s and into the early 90s. You had Spider-Man, obviously, Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Professor Xavier, She-Hulk, the Wasp, etc., etc., etc. Among the villains, you had Magneto, you had Doc Ock, Doctor Doom, the Absorbing Man, who I really hope gets adapted into a feature film soon. Ultron, Kang the Conqueror, and Galactus, among many, many others that are extremely cool. This series has a ton of fun action and has surprisingly aged very well. I was reading it very recently, and there's hardly any like cheesiness or dated themes to it. And the humor, as well as the really well done artwork, makes it effortless to read through. Mike Zeck is like one of my favorite comic book artists. I actually have a print of Secret Wars #8, which is the issue where Spider-Man gets the iconic black suit that would later become Venom. I have the cover of that signed in like a separate print. It's hanging on my wall in my room. Love that comic and I love that artwork. I will say this, it's not a perfect comic. The villain's motivations are very thin, but it leaves room for improvement when the movie eventually comes out. And Marvel has actually improved on the comics before, like Sebastian said with Civil War. But yeah, I would highly recommend this comic.
Yeah, I mean, but I try to read it. No offense, I try to read it. It is fun, but some of this dialogue is dated. Maybe because I'm so used to reading modern day comics instead of comics from the '80s that use thought balloons. I, I, I can't get behind thought balloons. But I agree, it is fun, especially in one part of the comic where Doctor Doom basically becomes a god. He's because he takes the powers of the Beyonder,
Yes,
right?
yeah, and actually, that type of storyline where Doctor Doom becomes basically essentially omnipotent has been adapted into later media as well. Do you guys ever remember playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance from
Yes,
2006?
I love that
Yeah,
game.
Fantastic game. It's easily my favorite Marvel game, one of my favorite games ever. But yeah, the plot line of Secret Wars was actually a lot like that.
yeah. But and they went, and even in the 2015 they went with it. Only this time he becomes like the ruler of this of Battle World, where instead of the Battle World that in the original comic, which what was it again? That it was just a planet that the Beyonder picked for the heroes and villains to fight.
Well, actually, the Battle World was actually created from other planets. So, like, he mashed pieces of other like planets and asteroids and stuff together to create different environments, different challenges for the heroes and villains to face as they fought. That's kind of one of my favorite parts of that comic book.
Well, in the 2015, same concept, but instead of that, it's more of the because of that. Before this, there was a bunch of things that happened before Secret Wars 2015 happened. Was that the multiverse was going to collapse with one another because the Beyonder in the comic is not the first one. There's a race of Beyonders that are very powerful, and they kind of went with like this idea of like let's just collapse one unearth and another, create an incursion, and thus because of that happens, the Illuminati and Doctor Doom was a part of that team that went there and fought them. Doctor Doom defeated them, took their power, and thus recreated Battle World on Earth with bits and pieces from different parts of the multiverse and mashed them together. Thus, yeah. I mean, in some cases, it shares a lot of DNA with the original. I mean, sure, it's just fun. I mean, hey, and I am hey, no argument on Mike Zeck. Mike Zeck is awesome.
He is
It is hard.
100%.
Yeah, I mean,
And
heck, I own one of my favorite. I own Craven's Last Hunt, which he drew, which is one of my favorite Spider-Man stories.
I have yet to read that one actually, but yeah, I will.
Oh,
I will check it out now.
yeah, yeah, uh, yeah. Secret Wars. Well, maybe I'll. You know what? I have Marvel. I have Marvel Unlimited. I'll give it a try. Uh,
Uh,
uh, I mean that's about it. Sebastian, you want anything to add?
yes. To anybody who doesn't already know this, the reason why this comic is called Secret Wars, Marvel literally put out a poll asking kids what they thought were the coolest words that would fit into a title, and the two words that they came up with were secret and wars. Apparent.
Right.
I, I just wanted to add that because I just thought I think it's on one hand it sounds ridiculous and silly, but that's exactly where Marvel's headspace was. Like they wanted to know what do their audience want, and it's not just the title, but the actual story itself is basically every kid's dream. All of their favorite heroes under one roof, having to either fight each other or fight together to survive against one gigantic threat. Which is why so many stories like Secret Wars basically changed the landscape of event comics as we know it. We got this, we got the Infinity War saga. We had on the DC side, we had all the multiple different crises that need to fucking slow down and stop. Because we got Crisis on Infinite Earths, Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, Heroes in Crisis, Identity Crisis, even though that's not even a crisis, it just has the word crisis. Can we please slow down with the crisis events, DC? But with Secret Wars, it was one of those comics that actually meant to begin a gigantic stir in the world of comics. And that stir, it wasn't by killing off characters for no reason or having the whole event be a setup to completely revamp the universe. It was just one really fun popcorn flick that you can flip through the pages and see your favorite heroes getting into multiple different shenanigans with other heroes that you like. And plus, it also changed a lot of different things that now we as comic book fans tend to take for granted. Like the black suit Spider-Man suit that at the time was just a cool black suit that made Spider-Man stronger, but also made him slightly different in terms of personality. And that would later turn...
But that wasn't in the comic. In the comic, it didn't change his personality. It was kept the same. He just found out that, oh, this thing is alive. It'll be permanently on my skin if I don't take it off.
And from that, it evolved into what would eventually become Venom, which would then get ruined when they made those two god-awful Sony movies. But that's a story for a different time. But Secret Wars, to me, is a story that is much more popular because of the impact that it had than for the actual story. Because the truth is, I've never actually read this story, and I've yet to actually know what it's about until you all pointed it out. And even understanding the plot that you guys are describing, the first thing that comes to mind, I hate to say it, is actually another DC story that did something vastly different but similar. Do you all remember that one Justice League episode where Superman was sent into Mongols' world in order to fight off in a gladiatorial tournament? And Jon Stewart and Hawkgirl and the Martian Manhunter had to get him out of there. And as he was fighting, a whole intergalactic audience was watching him get his ass kicked, only eventually standing up and fighting and being able to defend himself and save everybody. That's basically what this comic reminded me of.
I haven't seen that episode, so I can't say it for myself. I didn't watch the animated Justice League series, but it does seem very similar from what you're describing.
Yeah, it's like the two entities are completely different, and there's not that much continuity in terms of characters, but the stories are definitely similar, and it looks like some influence was there, even if it's only in terms of plot scenarios and not necessarily the story. So I feel like Secret Wars definitely paved the way for many more stories to be told, and am very excited for Marvel to take this story and finally work with it. I feel like they've been building this up for years, but they were saving it until they had the opportunity to make it happen. And since the House of Mouse finally owns the House of Mutants, they can now finally bring the MCU and the X-Men universe together to make possibly the biggest crossover event in history. Because people thought Infinity War was a big crossover. They have no clue what's in store for them once they see Secret Wars. Because Secret Wars will have characters from the MCU that have not appeared in movies before. We're probably going to be seeing Photon. We're probably going to be seeing Miss Marvel. We're probably going to be seeing characters that aren't even originally in the MCU. Like we're going to be seeing Professor Xavier. We're probably going to be seeing Magneto. Who knows if they're going to be recast, but if the rumors are true and they do end up bringing in Giancarlo Esposito as Professor Xavier, I will be so happy. You have no fucking clue why. I will lose my shit if that happens. Please, Marvel, let it happen. But this is the opportunity that comic book fans have been waiting for, and now it's finally coming in 3 years. I think they kind of need to wait a little longer because you also announced that you're doing the Kang Dynasty on the very same year, 6 months apart from each other. You guys maybe want to delay one or the other, not do both in the same year? I know you guys are trying to take over the box office, but I think you kind of did that with fucking Infinity War and Endgame. You don't need
Also,
to. You don't need to overkill the audience with superhero stuff.
all your VFX artists.
God damn it, that's another big issue.
I feel so bad for them, you guys. They're overworked to the bone. So few people understand how difficult it is to animate and edit VFX into movies. It's a painstaking process that often takes months just to get like a single shot to look perfect, which is why they have like entire teams, like fucking hundreds of people, and like usually more than one studio. I would say like 5 or 6 studios on a single Marvel movie will work on the same film.
Tell me about it. Like, I can never compare myself to those artists, but I worked with doing VFX for my videos when I did my Oscars fan favorite video, which is the first time I ever had to work with green screen effects. And let me tell you, as simple as those effects were, having to actually edit and composite each and every one of those videos, especially when some of the people that were acting on that, I'm looking at you, Luis, were wearing clothing that was not appropriate for a green screen. It was difficult, and I had to basically work around and see what fits in order for it to work. But, that's neither here nor there. Marvel, for the love of God, treat your animators with respect and give them a goddamn break. If you keep this up, your next movies are going to be looking like complete garbage, and we do not need that to happen. Especially since you've announced Secret Wars. Secret Wars is one of those movies you cannot afford to fuck up. If you fuck it up, you're going to be losing a lot of respect by a lot of people.
Hold that thought, because that's going to tie into to the next comic that I'm going to talk about. But we'll keep going for now. We'll just let somebody else go next.
All right.
Okay, so all right, me, Diego. Now it's your turn, Sebastian.
Oh boy. Well, you decided to talk about the Court of Owls, and Diego decided to talk about arguably one of the most influential Marvel stories ever. How's about I kind of switch things around and bring up what is still technically a DC story, but also technically not a DC story? It's hard to tell because there's just so many different people talking about who owns this particular IP, but this is the first comic I've ever owned and ever read, and you can say whatever you want about when I bought this, but yes, my first comic book ever was Alan Moore's Watchmen.
Nice.
Oh,
Of course.
Okay, let me make this perfectly clear. When the Watchmen movie was being promoted, it was all my friends and I could talk about back in high school. Middle school, because this is 2009. I was still middle. Oh my God, I'm old. But
Join the club.
Jesus Christ. When we were talking about this, we were like, dude, you gotta see this. Captain America is gunned down and killed in this. It's like, no way. And I see the trailer. It's like, what the hell is this? And everyone is talking about this comic, this movie, it's all these superheroes, but it's rated R. It's gonna be bloody and violent and gory and all the crap. There's swearing, there's nudity, there's violence. It's like, what is this? I've never heard of this before. And just out of coincidence, I was in the theater, and as we were getting out of the theater, I went to Borders back when that was still here in Puerto Rico, rest in peace. And because the movie was going to be coming out in less than a year, they were selling paperback copies of the Watchmen graphic novel, which I ended up asking my mom to get me a copy, and she did. It was the first comic I've ever read, and I was completely mesmerized by these pages. Everything from the artwork to the writing to the pretty much everything about this was just something I have never seen before in my life. It was unlike anything I have ever experienced as a comic book reader, because I don't read comics. I have never read a single comic book before in my life. Not even Spider-Man. I purchased a couple of comics before because they were selling it in my local. Some guys were selling it in my apartment back when I was living there a couple of years ago. But that was it. And even then, I had no clue what the hell was going on. So when I picked this up, and it was a pretty big book, I still got my copy right here. Or rather, I have a copy that somebody else gave me because the copy that I lent them ended up getting stolen. So, hey, at least they got me a new one. But rereading this, seeing every page, all the crazy artwork, all the amazing dialogue that was written by arguably the single greatest comic book writer of all time when he's not getting pissy over the state of comic books at the moment, is just a true icon, a very, very perfect gem in my eyes. So, what is Watchmen? What is the story? Because I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the TV show on HBO, which is a perfect 10 out of 10 masterpiece. One of the greatest TV shows ever made. But let me break it down to you all. And this is easily, without a doubt, one of the darkest comics I have ever read. In an alternate universe where Richard Nixon somehow ended up getting a third term, not even a second, a third term, the world is overrun by superheroes whom, like in the world of the boys, each exist in the real world as real life entities and have their own presence not just in pop culture but also in the world of politics and in the world of business. One day, one of the most popular superheroes, a very controversial hero named the Comedian, is murdered in his house and tossed from a huge flight of stairs to his death while just chilling in his apartment one day, and he kind of expected it. Even though it came out of nowhere, he somehow knew that something like this was going to happen. And when he died, his old friend, another hero named Rorschach, is investigating the whole thing and comes to the conclusion that someone is trying to kill costume heroes. Why? We don't know. That's the mystery, and this is where the story takes us. From here on in, it is a complete and utter mishmash of ideas and red herrings trying to figure out who the killer is while also coming to understand who these heroes are and the world around them. And this is a pretty fucked up world, and these are some pretty fucked up characters. So, a little background here. These heroes originally came as inspirations from other characters that were based on other heroes from Charlton Comics. A lot of which Alan Moore himself basically did as a parody, since most of these, if I'm not mistaken, they were written by Steve Ditko, who was an objectivist at the time. And many of these superheroes were written off as basically over-the-top parodies of these different characters, most notably The Question. Yes, The Question, the very popular DC sleuth that many fans already know of. Rorschach was a parody, if you want to call it, of that particular character, who is now technically a DC character. And when this story was written, it was basically done with the mentality, what if superheroes existed in the real world? It gives you that mentality, but apart from the mentality, it also gives you an answer to that question. If superheroes did exist in the real world, then it would suck. They would be disappointing, they would be controversial, they would be horrible human beings. They could only live to disappoint. And basically, upon reading every single page, you come to the understanding that none of these heroes are likable. In fact, the main character, Rorschach, is not only horribly bigoted, he's also homophobic, and also 100% certain that he is in some way a bit of a socialist, but like the perverted idea of what socialism is. And he hero worships the Comedian a lot, whom, if you didn't know, was also a very big controversial superhero for a variety of reasons. I mean, if you get around the fact that he's a warmonger, someone who really loves to use his Second Amendment rights, and has even used it in his own personal life to gun down a pregnant woman that he himself got pregnant because she ended up cutting his face out of anger when he refused to do anything about the child that he ended up putting her with. and I'm just scratching the surface. I'm not even going to go into detail about the other uncomfortable stuff that he does. Starts with an R and rhymes with schmape, or attempted schmape. But
Yeah, it's intense. It's intense, man.
yeah, so
Yeah.
you basically come to the realization, yeah, no, none of these assholes are the good guys. Like, you may be protagonists, but you're not heroes. You may be wearing costumes, but you're not the good guys. You're in a story where you may be considered the protagonist, but you're not Superman, you're not Batman, you're just a whole bunch of Red Hoods. And the bad guy, oh my goodness, I love the bad guy so much. Ozymandias, the smartest man in the world. Adrian Veidt. I did an entire 7-minute long video essay breaking down how he basically destroyed the concept of supervillainy by basically saying, yeah, I'm going to explain to you my plan. But it doesn't matter if I explain to you my plan because there's nothing that you can do to prevent it. And that's where I'm going to leave it, because if you haven't actually read or seen, if you haven't read the graphic novel or seen the Zack Snyder film that I will be talking about briefly, but not too much because I want this to be about the comic, not the film, then you know that the twist with this villain is one of the biggest holy shit, I got you and you never saw it coming moments in comic book history.
Yeah, I agree. And like, let me just add to what you just said about that whole twist thing. It was apparently one of the most influential twists in comic book history. I mean, this fucking shook the world of comics to its core. The things that the antagonist ended up doing, like towards the end of the story, it was actually like one of those things where it's like, I feel like this is where Infinity War took a lot of inspiration from, where it was like, hey, this guy is actually like really fucked up in the head and he's not thinking straight, but he thinks he's the good guy. He thinks he's being the hero by doing all these things. And it goes into what you said about how these superheroes aren't exactly picture perfect, like squeaky clean idols that we should like cheer for whenever they destroy a city. Like, they're actually flawed human beings that have very selfish needs. They just have more power to do that than us regular folk. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's freaking brilliant. Like, the what it talks about in terms of like humanity, and like if we actually had access to these powers, that everybody would do the same, anybody with a rational mind. But then again, we wouldn't necessarily be rational, would we?
No,
No.
if
It would.
anything,
Well, can I add something? I think if Watchmen kind of brought the attention of, well, if the real world had powers or anything like if the real world was anything like the comic books, it wouldn't be flashy or anything like those comic books. I mean, because we are human beings, it was basically, in fact, the boys. We will all become like the characters from the boys.
except each and every one of us would be Billy Butcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would
Or
all be
A
calling
Train.
everybody cunts.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Or A-Trade or whoever.
Well,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be A-Train because there's no actual superheroes in this world. It's just a bunch of assholes in costumes. Literally, that's literally all they are. Is a bunch of assholes in costumes and tights who decided, you know what, I'm going to be a hero one day.
And there's only one. And there's only one who has powers. Who people call a superhero, even though he is, powerful, but he just doesn't think like us. Like, he has powers, but he's thinking on a different level than us. That he is kind of, become almost godlike.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that specifically too, because that's one of the neat twists about if people actually had powers, they would basically lose all empathy for others because they feel like they've transcended humanity.
Yeah.
And
Case in point, Dr. Manhattan.
oh my goodness. Yes. You guys want me to talk about Dr. Manhattan? Because I got a whole bunch of stuff to say about Dr. Manhattan.
Let's dive right in, bro. Like, he was actually my favorite character because of like how well written like his take on superheroes was.
No problem. All right. So, Dr. Manhattan is basically. I always imagined, what if Superman was a human, not like a Kryptonian that was sent down to Earth and became one of us. No. I mean, like, what if a man literally just became Superman but was still human? And that's basically what Doctor Manhattan is. He's the concept of the Superman, but in the hands of a flawed human being. And he was basically the father of his own manifestation. He is omnipotent to the point of not being able to age, powerful enough to destroy things before they can actually have a chance to happen. He can disintegrate things and reanimate them to his will. He is essentially the most powerful creature in the world, but he's still just a man. And he wasn't a very good man either. And the minute that he became powerful, he essentially realized that life is meaningless. There's no purpose for this world, and there's really no such thing as there's no concepts that actually matter here. Time is one of the most important concepts in the world of Watchmen because his father was a watchmaker. And the minute that he became what he is, he finally understood that yes, time really is irrelevant because he can literally do anything and be anywhere and everywhere at once, and it doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
person like that with this type of strength and this level of power, he is someone who is going to look at the world and laugh at just how petty and weak it is. Like, I am above all of you. I don't owe you anything. And that's exactly what happens in this story. Because no matter how strong or how powerful you are, or how big of an influence you had, all the world will know about you is the worst aspects of your character, which is something that happens in this story and is something that was also very, very hauntingly well captured in the live action movie, where in a midst of a talk show, he is accosted by a reporter who tells him that nearly any and every person that he has ever spoken with is now suffering from cancer that he may or may not have been the cause of. And as he is in the midst of being accosted by this, he is confronted by his old lover that he himself cheated on and left because as she got older, he stayed the same and he realized, yeah, no, I did cheat on her because she is older and she's a younger person. It is true. I'm not denying this because that's actually the case. He is not even apologetic about it. He just did what he did because that's exactly what he is. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. But seeing now the consequences of his actions and being confronted about it right to his face, he started to realize this world is asking too much for just one man, and he left the world behind and started a new one by himself on Mars. And if there has ever been a perfect depiction of what a god amongst men would be like, it would be it. I'm not going to use my powers for good. I'm not going to use it to cure cancer. I'm not going to use it to stop wars. I'm going to use it for selfish gains. And I'm going to use it first to escape this terrible world and make a new one for myself. And
Like he said, can I add something?
Go
Like
ahead.
he said to Rorschach, yeah, like he said to Rorschach near the end of the comic, I can change almost anything, but I can't change human nature.
Exactly. If he can't change human nature, why the hell should he have to adapt to it? Why should God need to lower himself to the common man?
Exactly. And that's you guys hit it right on the head with how fucking brilliant this comic book is and how well written it is. I mean, dude, this character just has layers upon layers upon layers. I kind of wish that we had gotten like some sort of sequel or continuation of the comics just to see what else Dr. Manhattan gets up to, but I understand that that would actually kind of detract from the point that the comic was trying to make.
Yeah, about that. I know what you're about to say, Emmanuel, if I may interject. Uh, it is 100% true what you just said, Diego. And another reason why I kind of wanted to talk about the movie, but not too much, is because to talk about the movie is a bit like reading the comic and watching the movie. The movie is 100% a very faithful adaptation, aside from the ending where they took away the giant squid that destroys Manhattan and Russia. They changed that to just a goddamn explosion all over the fucking world. But apart from that, the point of the comic was that everything in this comic is supposed to be terrible. You do not like these characters. You have no reason to like these characters. These are terrible characters, and this world around them is just like the real world. Horrible, gruesome, violent, filled with perverted assholes, and just the worst kind of place imaginable. Why in the hell would anyone want to be a good guy in this universe? Why would anyone be a superhero? And when you read it, you basically come to the realization, oh, I get it. This isn't an instruction manual, it's a warning. It's telling me, no, stories like this should not be the norm. Comic books should not be like this. And then Zack Snyder, who was a big fan of the graphic novel and also an Ayn Rand fanatic, read the damn thing and said, oh yeah, this is awesome! Comic book stories should totally be like this. And look, I am not going to say that Zack Snyder did not understand Watchmen. Okay, I am totally saying he didn't understand Watchmen because nobody who has read the comic has ever thought to themselves, you know what? These ugly costumes, this terrible art style, this horrible fight scenes that look disgusting and uncomfortable to look at, I need to make them look cool and flashy and badass. Let's take that stupid owl costume that Night Owl has, and we're gonna make him cool like Batman. And we're gonna have the comedian be badass, and we're gonna have Flight of the Valkyrie playing in the background while he's torching Viet Cong and shooting them left and right. Like, look, Zach, I love you. You're cool. You made the Snyder Cut. Great movie. But you gotta understand, if people criticize your adaptation of Watchmen, it's not that it's an unfaithful adaptation. It's just that the fact that it exists is a fucking problem. Because you literally ignored the message that the story worked so hard to make. That stories like these are not good and that we, as fans, should not want to listen to them. Hell, I would not be surprised if this shit is what helped inspire the works of Garth Ennis and the boys. Because if you look at this, the boys and Watchmen have very similar and very equally disgusting DNA that's sort of mixed in with the both of them. Because with Watchmen, you know these characters are horrible and you're not supposed to like them. But with the boys, a lot of these characters, you are supposed to root for them, even though you're supposed to hate them at the same time. Which one is it? It really is.
Yeah.
Have we considered perhaps, and I'm speaking completely from an uninformed point of view, full disclosure, just going to throw myself under the bus before I say this. Have you considered Zack Snyder might have been trying to be purposefully ironic? Like maybe he was trying to pile onto that and perhaps add that cinematic flair?
The thing is, I want to believe that, but that would involve me needing to believe that Zack Snyder understands subtlety. And Zack Snyder is about as subtle as a brick wall to the face. I mean, look at any of his movies and tell me that the man is subtle. He's like Michael Bay if Michael Bay had taste.
Well, again, I feel like that kind of drives it home even more. Like, look at all these like flashy directors that direct MCU movies, for example. And Watchmen is kind of supposed to be like the antithesis of that. And I understand the point that you're trying to make about it. It's supposed to be like a warning that, hey, superheroes aren't actually that great, so maybe we should like let up on the superheroes or whatever. But at the same time, maybe like by making a movie like this and being unironically flashy like that is kind of part of the message that he's trying to convey.
Well, the thing, if that's supposed to be the case, I gotta be honest, that message and that idea is kind of lost in translation because you look at the costume design, you look at the way that he choreographs all the fight scenes, the way that he shoots them in his traditional slow-mo, fast motion style, and you can tell that he is basically trying to make this look as cool and badass looking as possible. Even some of the parts that aren't exactly supposed to be cool or badass. I mean, for the love of Christ, do I need to bring up the most uncomfortable scene in the entire movie? And I am very sorry to any baby ears in the audience. The sex scene between Night Owl and Silk Spectre.
Uh,
Oh my god!
With
you
What a
mean-
Wonderful World in the background in the movie.
No, it was Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Oh, hallelujah! Thank you.
Yeah,
I-
because as a way to say, yeah, because at first he can't get it up because in the comic, he's kind of impotent. But when he gets into that costume, well, like the song said, hallelujah. He basically is like, fuck yeah, I can do that.
and speaking of subtlety, yeah, very subtle. I can totally tell that he's having an erection right now because the second that he's about to come, the fucking owl jet, whatever the hell that thing is called, literally burst into fucking flames. As soon as the big hallelujah note fucking starts
That's fucking
playing.
great.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's kind of I think it's the most unintentionally funniest scene in the movie because Jesus how over the top it is with him putting that song in the sea, and it's just yeah. I think it just shows you that Zack Snyder can be, and maybe he's a corny guy because he basically used a lot of songs on his dates or something. I don't know.
I do not need to know about. I really do not need to know about the mating styles of Zack Snyder. I do not need to see
No. More like when he was a teen. Maybe more like when he was a teenager. Maybe he was a big music fan and he listened to a couple of songs in order to get dates or something. Or I don't know, because my God, maybe he's into musicals. I don't know.
Listen, all I know is all I can say from my personal and again uninformed perspective is that I still enjoy the film for what it is.
I mean, the film is. If you take away that aspect, the film is inherently pretty harmless. I mean, yeah, it makes things way cooler than they should be, and it kind of takes away a lot of what the message of the story is, but it's still a very, very good adaptation. Like, I would say definitely check out the comic if you want to see how accurate the movie was until they got rid of the squid. And then check out the show, the Watchmen TV series, because that is a very good example of how to do a sequel to this story and have it work. Because the HBO miniseries, in my opinion, is not only one of the greatest TV shows ever made, it's also one of the best sequels to any comic ever. And I almost feel like this could have existed in its own separate universe, but it can easily live in both.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I've actually never seen it, so I might actually check it out now.
Oh, you're gonna love this shit. And the best part, Adrian Veidt in this one is played by Sir Jeremy Irons.
Really? That's awesome. I love Jeremy Irons.
Oh, then you're gonna love this. And also, Jesus, I forgot her name. Regina King. She's the main protagonist.
Nice. I love Regina King. She's great too.
Oh, you're gonna love this.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah, but if the show kind of shifts away from the threat of nuclear war to different issues.
Yeah, this basically there's a the show is perfect, but it got hated by a bunch of people who you can already guess who they are. The anything that's woke is bad crowd.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I figured.
That's how you know that the show is actually not bad in the slightest, and it's just hated by a bunch of rednecks.
Okay, that's fair. I now I want to watch it even harder.
Exactly. I own the steelbook of it. I just wish they released it on fucking 4K, but you know what? You work with what you got. So anyway, boys, anyone else have a comment they want to talk about?
Well, since Diego brought up Marvel, I think it would be best for me to talk about my favorite Marvel comic. It was hard for me to pick between two. It's because they were so good. It's kind of hard for me to pick which is which. But in this case, I'll go with this: Planet Hulk and World War Hulk. Yeah, they're two. They're two different. They're two stories, but I don't consider them one continuous epic story. Because I mean, Planet Hulk was basically what?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Planet Hulk was basically for me the perfect jumping on point for the Hulk. Like I've been a fan of the Hulk character ever since I watched the cartoon in the '90s, and even have a soft spot for the 2003 film by Ang Lee. And I read some of the comics that they gave me as a present, and that was more of like the '70s show or like the 2008 movie where it was like a man on the run type story, Bruce Banner going from place to place, being hunted by the government. But in this case, this was the first time I read a Hulk comic where you basically changed him, but in a good way, reinventing him from basically being Hulk smash, Hulk bash. Instead, we have a Hulk that's more, it's more in depth, has layers, and he's not a brooding like a dumb monster. He may be angry, but he's kind of he can speak in full sentences, and he can be quite a tragic character. And this is kind of almost like the story in a way. I mean, yeah, it's Gladiator, but I always see it as more like Gladiator plus adding a mix of an epic Greek tragedy. Because the Hulk is kind of a hero, but he's also a villain because of his anger. His anger is also his strength and his weakness and his downfall.
Wow.
Isn't Planet Hulk one of the comics that was inspired to write the story of Thor Ragnarok?
Yeah, they kind of used it because obviously I think at the time, or I don't know how long Universal has the distribution rights to the Hulk. It's obvious that they were asking Marvel to do a Planet Hulk film. It's not like Kevin Feige wants to do it. He wants to do it. It's just I don't have the rights to distribute a Hulk movie. That's through Universal. And I don't know why Universal doesn't want to just give the rights back to Marvel. Like what is of use to them? And they don't even want to collaborate with Marvel like Sony is doing with Marvel doing Spider-Man movies. Maybe it's because of the theme park rights. I don't know, but yeah, the Black Hulk is such a great story, along with World War Hulk, because World War Hulk doesn't work as its own standalone story because it's kind of like works alongside with Planet Hulk. I mean, it is it's like an epic story, but at least in the Planet Hulk there was more like quieter moments. Like it's not like boom 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 like flat big epic fights, gladiatorial sword and sandal. It at least has depth. It has time to develop characters and make them more like likable. You get to learn more about them and care about them. And World War Hulk is basically like the companion piece where you actually root for the Hulk to just get his revenge because by the end of the story, spoiler alert for those who haven't read the comic, the Hulk, the same ship that got the Hulk there in the first place, blew up and killed his wife and an unborn child that sent him on a rampage and a warpath towards Earth for revenge. Yeah, and at the end of the Hulk and World War Hulk, there's a twist there that I'm not gonna say anymore. Best you find out for yourself because it is that great. And I mean, I wish I could say more, but honestly, I don't know if by saying much more can do justice to show you how great this story really is.
I have actually been curious about World War Hulk for a really long time, and this is as good of a pitch as I've ever gotten. Let me just say. So I'm gonna see like if I can actually find this thing, because I have found Planet Hulk, but I wanted to collect sort of both of them at the same time because I've never owned a Hulk comic, and I don't think I've really seen like an interesting enough Hulk comic except for this one. This is the one that's always like in the back of my head. It's like, man, I wish I could read World War Hulk and find out what goes down, what happens to the heroes, does the Hulk die, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, this is as good of a pitch as I've ever gotten, and you really sold me on it, man. I gotta say.
Yeah, but first read Planet Hulk before you read World War Hulk, because I mean the pitch for Planet Hulk is imagine Gladiator but in space, and the Hulk is basically Maximus.
Okay, that's good enough for me, man.
Yeah, and Thor Ragnarok did a decent job on the adaptation, but it's more of you got the basic elements right. It's just not the same story.
I wouldn't say it was, honestly, look, I know very little about the comic book, but I will say that it doesn't seem like a very faithful adaptation to me. It seemed like they just took like the Planet Hulk armor, which I'm looking at on Google Images right now, and then they just put that on the Hulk, and then just called it a day for the adaptation. I gotta say, I was hearing theories before Ragnarok came out that it was going to be like this sort of like really dark twist on the Hulk. It's like, hey, Hulk has sort of evolved a little bit more. He's learned some. He's kind of become a different person. And he kind of did. Like, he learned how to speak more fluently. But beyond that, there's barely anything there that could even be misconstrued as Planet Hulk.
No. The thing is, Sakaar and Ragnarok is kind of like, well, cookies and milk or something. It's hard for me to pick a analogy for that, because Sakaar in the comic is basically ancient Rome, and they replaced the emperor-like character in the comic with Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum as the collector, the Grandmaster. I think was it the Grandmaster?
Yes.
Yeah, the Grandmaster. Who I like the Sakaar section of the Ragnarok, but as a fan of the comic, this ain't Sakaar, because Sakaar's more like ancient Rome. The main antagonist in that story is basically like Joaquin Phoenix. He's basically a Roman type. I mean, that was the purpose. The writer of the comic even on purpose said this was on purpose, that this was more a reflection of ancient Rome, and the antagonist is supposed to look like, well, a Roman emperor, so on and so forth. And yeah, yeah, and also because of the changes of that story, you can't do World War Hulk, because the purpose of that story is that the ship blew up and killed his wife, and then the ship blew up in Ragnarok.
Did he have a wife in Ragnarok?
No, because the Hulk can talk, but he still thinks like a child. In Planet Hulk, he's more, well, a man. He's more intelligent. He doesn't act like Hulk smash, Hulk bash like a child. He thinks more intelligently. He has more thought. He has more, like, he basically learns. Like, at first, he fights like a savage, but he goes through training and he becomes a much more capable warrior.
I will also say this. If you're looking for an adaptation, a proper adaptation of Planet Hulk, they did an animated version of this story that I saw many years ago. It is actually pretty damn good, in my opinion. And Meek actually speaks in this. Yeah, I was kind of surprised watching Ragnarok and Meek basically being a silent character that is only in the background for comedic purposes. Like, I like Meek in the MCU, but like, he had his badass moments in the comic.
Yeah. Meek is like the one who kind of is the supporter of the Hulk, who befriends the Hulk, and in that story where the Hulk doesn't want to basically get attached to anybody. He just wants to, well, be left alone. And Meek is like one of the who wants to be his friend, and like you said, Sebastian, that animated movie is basically, I would say for me, a great adaptation of that comic. Minor few changes, because the Silver Surfer appears in the comic as one of the opponents that the Hulk has to fight, but in the animated movie, it's Beta Ray Bill.
Hey, to be fair, let's not diss Beta Ray Bill, though. This is not a place where Beta Ray Bill is to be disrespected.
Absolutely not.
No, Beta Ray Bill is awesome, and I wish that for at this point now, why hasn't Marvel introduced him in the MCU?
They wanted to. Apparently, Taika Waititi really wanted to introduce him in the movie, but Kevin Feige said no for some reason.
Why?
That
Because
is
he's
a missed opportunity.
Yeah, Beta Ray Bill is look to him, man. He could be the perfect character to as a way to remind, as the perfect character to basically portray the old version of Thor, where it was more Shakespearean or serious, in contrast to how Thor is now, in the hands of Waititi.
I mean, I'm not going to diss Waititi because I love what he's doing with Thor, and what he did with Thor Ragnarok I thought was actually pretty fantastic, but seeing these two as separate entities, they each have their own unique strengths and weaknesses that each work for them separately. Planet Hulk is a fantastic story, and this is one that, even though I haven't read the comic, I definitely want to check out as well, because this shit is actually pretty fantastic, all things considered.
Yeah, I want to say this because recently the writer of the Planet Hulk is coming back to do sort of a sequel to the story as a 5-issue miniseries.
Huh. Well, that's going to be interesting to see.
That's exciting.
Yeah. That's my Marvel story. I wanted to add another Marvel story, but that could be for later. Anyway, Diego?
Okay, it's my turn again, and you guys all know this one. My picks. This next one is actually going to be an indie one, and it's a pretty popular one. I'd actually be surprised if you hadn't heard about this comic. It got turned into a very famous and often called atrocious TV show called The Walking Dead.
Oh God, no.
Yes. So listen, you guys, the comic book of The Walking Dead and the TV show are like night and day in contrast, and I know Sebastian's going to agree with me on this one. You guys all know this one. It's the classic zombie comic that inspired the long-running TV series that's finally about to crash land into its final episodes. The comics, by comparison, are leagues ahead of the show, both in the spectacle and in the writing. I mean, this is practically Shakespearean writing by comparison. The comics treated all of its characters with respect, and the story felt like it actually had layers upon layers with its themes, with its emotion. The stakes felt higher, like everything felt more intense. The story never lost its pacing, never lost its core message about maintaining your humanity during desperate times. Something that could actually be applied to stuff today with everything that we were going through recently with the COVID-19 pandemic that we're still kind of going through. But if you know anything about the Walking Dead comics and the show, you know that the show has deviated multiple times from the original comics, which in my opinion is something that media should do more often. I just wish that the Walking Dead show had done it better and more consistently so. And that's most of what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about the comparisons because this is a pretty widely known comic. But most of the time, the show has had some pretty controversial and disappointing storylines that were disappointing because they were deviations from the comics. Most famously, the show wrote out both Rick and Carl Grimes, who were the two main characters and the whole reason for the story to exist in the first place. In the comics, the show was actually rooted in Rick Grimes' struggle to keep his family alive and not lose the sense of humanity that he had before the apocalypse, or at least try to retain some of it over the course of his journey to survival. He was constantly also juggling the burden of his leadership in the group with his core motivation as a family man. And to throw that away to keep the show going just for the sake of money instead of simply ending the show along with it was, in my opinion, a huge mistake. The rest of the show, there were some good moments, few and far between it. I will say that my favorite episode of the show ever was after Rick left, and it did not involve Rick at all in the first place. But at the same time, for the most part, the show just kind of felt hollow after that. It didn't feel like it had a point. It didn't feel like it had a general purpose to be there. And the show handled the changes from the comics and the themes and stuff very haphazardly. I'm not going to deny, obviously, that the show did have its moments, but they were very few and far between. There's one particularly powerful moment in season 5 of the show. It's an episode where Rick and the other characters are in a barn and they're holding up for the night because there's a big storm happening outside. And Rick talks about this really interesting story about his grandfather, who I think fought in World War II. And he was like really stressed out, and he like felt that he had lost his humanity during the course of that war. And he considered himself the Walking Dead, and he mirrored that to what him and the group were going through now. Incredibly powerful scene, and in my opinion, that was like the high of the show. Other times we got shit like season 2, where Rick constantly goes back and forth on whether or not to kill a hostage that he and the group rescued, and then in the end ends up killing Shane like he's any better of a person for thinking the same way that he was. I'm not going to lie that the show did improve slightly, but it never really came close to how good the comics were. The comics were gory, they were shocking, they were extremely intense, and they had actually very smart writing. I'm very sad that it ended, because it did actually end very recently, but at the same time, I'm glad that it didn't overstay its welcome. This is definitely like, if there was ever an indie comic that you would want to read that's not Marvel or DC, I would highly recommend this one, because I cannot recommend it enough.
Oh, Sophia! Where's Sophia? We can't find Sophia
But yeah, what do you
anywhere. Oh my god. How do I say this without coming off as an ass? So, I actually do have history with The Walking Dead in comic form. I actually got the very first Walking Dead omnibus that was released back when the show was becoming popular. I read the first one. I never really finished it, now that I think about it, and I thought it was pretty creepy. It was scary, and it was actually pretty fantastic, all things considered. I never really got into it afterwards, but I did ended up giving the show a chance because I liked the first book that I read, and I wanted to see how far can it go. And then I watched the first season, and I loved it. And it turns out this series was actually created by one of my favorite directors of all time, Frank Darabont, who not only made my favorite movie of all time, The Shawshank Redemption, he also did movies like The Green Mile and The Mist, and he essentially made the first season one of the most memorable bits of television ever made. And
yeah,
then,
I agree.
And then season 2 happened. Well, brother, and then the series continued. And then he got fired. And then the damn lawsuits that came afterwards, which only recently concluded, by the way. Only very recently did those lawsuits conclude. Oh, good lord, where do I even begin with this? I'm gonna try to keep my anger to a minimum, because whenever I talk about The Walking Dead, it's like I'm talking about Game of Thrones. They're both shit, but only one pisses me off more, because one was actually good when it started, while the other one was never good, and it got 8 seasons, and still is getting a prequel. So...
To you, Game of Thrones was good in the first 5 seasons. Fight me. I don't care.
It was never good. Shut up! You're letting your nostalgia get the best of you. But with this shit, it was bad as it continued to get progressively worse. No matter how far it came, every episode from season 2 and onwards was just an endless marathon of stupid characters being stupid. Like, I can forgive for a second that. I can forgive the stupidities between Rick and Shane. Like, that whole back and forth between the two of them, I can kind of forgive that for a second there. I can't, because, one of them just came back from the dead, and the other one was basically taking charge of his family and his fellow and everyone else around him. Now, we gotta have some sort of conflict, but as the series kept on progressing, the walkers, the literal Walking Dead, started to be the thing that the show was completely forgetting. Like, oh, yeah, I forgot. This is a show about zombies. Oh, they're the zombies. Hi, zombies. Anyways, we gotta be careful because these guys are about to kill us. Yeah, these guys, not the zombies that are right there and are about to kill us. No, it's these guys, these cannibals, this fucking village filled by crazy people with the fucking oh god, I'm gonna talk about the governor. No. Oh god, Sebastian, be careful, because every time you talk about the governor, you go into a rant. Gotta calm down. Gotta calm myself down. Nope, I can't. The governor ruined the show for me. I hated this character. I hated him in the comic, and I hated him in this show. It's like, hey, how can we take this very dark and very sad and also very realistic depiction of a pandemic where a bunch of survivors have to survive against a horde of the undead? I know, let's have a goddamn cartoonish bad guy with a fucking eye patch with his merry band of fuckwits coming around and say, we got to kill these people for some reason. And let's kill Herschel for some reason as well. Why the hell not? Oh, and season 2, Sophia, where are you? Sophia, we can't find you. Oh my god, Sophia. Oh my god, can you... I have never prayed for the death of a little girl so badly until I watched this season. And then...
continue, please.
And then there's Beth!
Oh, God, Beth. I felt so bad for her, man. She really got the short end of the stick there.
She had no character!
Her death felt so cheap on the show. Ah, man. Dude. If ever there was a disservice to such a beloved character. And to be fair, there really wasn't much to her. Like, she felt like she was, like, kind of struggling to have a motivation for a long time. But she did eventually find her way in the end, only to get it cut short so soon, man. That was really just the most frustrating thing to me.
It's like, hey, this non-character that was just there in the background, let's give her a personality in the last few episodes, but then have her stupidly walk into the barrel of a gun, get shot in the fucking head by her own accidental stupidity. But no, the other person was an asshole, so therefore she deserves to get killed. So, it's okay, she was bad, so it's totally justifiable and not totally a result of her own stupidity. I remember when she died and the internet was losing their shit over it, and I was the one asshole commenting like a fucking troll saying, here lies Beth.
I feel like I remember that. When you were posting about that.
It was the one time I ever legitimately felt like a damn Twitter troll, just because, and here, it's like, in the arms of an angel, and in my eyes, it's just clips of Beth wandering in the background doing nothing, and then the last clip is her fucking shooting herself in the head.
If you or a loved one had ever felt any sympathy for Beth, please call the number on your screen now.
For just pennies a day, you can help support this poor struggling Norman Reedus character get over the fact that his ship has now sunk forever.
Yeah. And let's talk about Daryl Dixon, who, by the way, in case anybody knew, him or his brother Merle from the show were not in the comics. That's kind of like the biggest change that they actually made. Dude, if ever there was a definition of plot armor, his picture would be in the dictionary next to that phrase, because holy shit, I have never seen a character so haphazardly saved and also kind of baited into death at the same time. Like, how many brushes has Daryl had that were like unnecessarily close to death, and they wouldn't fucking kill this guy because he was their biggest cash cow?
About as much as Glenn, but even Glenn had the good courtesy to finally die.
Yeah, Glenn did die, and that was one of those things that was like extremely faithful to the comics, and a lot of people were actually very satisfied with. But at the same time, listen, how many times did Glenn cheat death over the course of the show before he finally got caught in somewhere that he couldn't escape?
The dumpster, the damn plot dumpster.
Dude, that was so frustrating. It's like you were watching the episode. You knew that he wasn't going to die, but it just treated you with such disrespect.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And dude, man, the reason I'm this quiet because, well, I read the comic when it was on the prison after, and when the Negan, where it was hitting in its 100 issue, and that was the issue where Glenn got killed by Negan by bashing him with a head with Lucille, and that's about it. And that's how I knew, Glenn was gonna die like that. But man,
that was like the most famous. Sorry, no, keep going.
Yeah, and the way that you basically made at first I thought it was they were gonna make a bold choice and have Glenn die by the dumpster. But no, it's like, psych! I'm alive!
They don't respect themselves or us enough to do that. And look, I have a beef with Scott Gimple about this at the same time, because he was the reason that seasons like 6 through 8 were the worst of the entire show. Sebastian hates season 2, and that he thinks that was the downfall of The Walking Dead. They did come back a little bit. I'm not gonna like deny that the show did have its moments, but from then on, it was just completely pointless. Oh my god.
I will say this. I will say one thing nice about season 7. The actual episode following that really stupid, controversial cliffhanger of season 6, where he bashes some dude's brains and the whole screen goes to black and red with blood, which I will admit, that's a pretty fucking cool ending, and I think it's pretty ballsy for them to end that way. You know,
they did it for the money, dude. They did it for the money. That was disrespect of the highest pedigree.
I know. I 100% agree. But, you know, if I was working on a show where a bunch of dickheads on the internet were basically criticizing everything we're doing, I would say fuck you to them too. But when season 7 appeared and it finally concluded with everybody finding out who is it going to bash? Is it going to be Carol? Is it going to be Maggie? Is it going to be Rick? Is it going to be Coral? Yes, Coral, because that's exactly how fucking Andrew Lincoln calls him in the show.
Coral.
No, it's...
Coral.
No. It's neither of them. It's some guy called Abraham, because I do not watch this show and I completely forgot who this man was. But he has a cool one-liner. He says, "Suck my nuts." It's like, okay. And he just bashes his brains out. It's like, I'm sorry, was that your husband? That sucks.
He was actually you know what? He was actually one of the few things that I really enjoyed about the show, because he had like 80s quality one-liners. I mean, these things would make Arnold Schwarzenegger jealous. Like, you thought "Who killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age" was a good line. You haven't heard. You would have a hard time picking up a turd by its clean end. or why are dingleberries brown? That's just the way shit is.
Okay, I'll give him that. That was good. But what killed me is that if fucking Daryl had just kept his fucking mouth shut and didn't do anything, we probably could have had Glenn still cheating death the same way that he's been doing this whole time. But nope, fucking Negan, in that one moment where I admit, like, oh, okay, I guess they're not gonna kill Glenn. But then he's like, nope, back to it, and he starts beating the shit out of him. I was literally, everyone in the world, including my girlfriend Erica, they were screaming, they were horrified, they were heartbroken, they were crying, and I'm the only asshole sitting there like, yes! Woo! Let's go! And he's sitting there, it's like, I'll find you, Maggie. And I'm like, nope! And he just keeps beating the fucking shit out of him. His fucking slot from the Goonies looking face, as there's nothing left except his twitchy body, all dead and his skull crushed to the fucking ground. That was the one time The Walking Dead became good again for me. It's that one episode, not even the whole episode, just that one moment where they subverted my expectations. I thought they were gonna pussy out again, but no, we're not gonna kill one character, we're gonna kill two characters. And we're gonna kill the one character you want to see killed because it happened, but we're gonna kill him last because you will never see it coming.
Yeah, and I gotta say, props to them for making it like almost like shot for shot loyal to the comics. I mean, you could rip that shot of Glenn's body on the ground just straight out of the comics. Every single detail about that was like accurate to the T.
Yeah, but the best part wasn't even that. It was the parodies that we got out of Robot Chicken.
The parodies were great. I distinctly remember there was this one where Carl and Negan are sitting across from each other on those couches, and it's like, "Hey, kid, let me see your eye hole." And then Carl takes off his eye patch, and it's like the hole, and it turns into like a vortex and like starts sucking everything in with this huge like wind tunnel. It's like, oh shit! And he's like hanging off of the couch. He gets sucked into the eye hole.
Yes,
That was so cool, man.
Oh no, my favorite one was the one where Glenn and Maggie were basically playing hide and seek, but it was Glenn after having his brain smashed, and every time he was looking for Maggie, he was like, "I'll find you, Maggie. I'll find you, Maggie."
I haven't seen that one, but I feel look, I feel like we're getting off track here. Obviously, you know, everyone's favorite storyline was the Negan storyline where it was like the war between the survivors and the saviors, and that was like a very highly anticipated storyline here. It was one that everybody was looking forward to. Even like casual fans who hadn't heard of The Walking Dead, they had known that the Negan storyline that started obviously when Negan murdered Glenn was like one of the bigger, like it was the biggest one in that entire comic book. And they dragged it on for so long that everybody eventually just lost interest because they kept doing all these like stupid cliffhangers and unnecessary character arcs just for the sake of getting more views and racking up. And it's like, hey, guess what? Season 8 is coming and we're finally doing it. And then honestly, they could have condensed that entire season into like 8 episodes. Season 7 and 8 could have easily been just one single season. You just do half of one, half of the other, and you would have been fine. But obviously, you know, AMC and Scott Gimple only cared about getting views, only cared about hiking up their ratings and getting more money. So what we ended up with was a fucking Jeffrey Dahmer impersonator kidnapping one of the characters for one episode. It was fucking hilarious.
I forgot about that.
The more you talk about it, the more less disinterested I am from watching the show ever again. And besides, Carl is a much interesting character in the comic that he is in the show, especially how they killed him off in the show.
Wasn't he supposed to have a love interest and be one of the few survivors? Like, doesn't he live at the end of the comic?
Yeah,
who does, Carl?
Yeah, Carl. I think he lives in the comic.
Yes, he does. So I don't know if I should spoil it. But he does actually end up living the rest of his life, and he ends up just fine. He starts a family of his own, and it's actually very fulfilling. And it like that was kind of the whole point of him being there, was like being Rick's legacy, being the world that he leaves behind, not just for his son, but also his son being a part of that world. And that was one of the most frustrating and disappointing. The most frustrating and disappointing thing to me about it was just how disrespectful they were to the original source material, which I understand, again, that you can deviate from the source material, but just don't deviate so much that it becomes unrecognizable.
I'm of the opinion of you can make a story based on an existing property and not have it be faithful to it, as long as you have a proper story to tell and you understand what made that original series work. Like, picking apart its strengths, but not its weaknesses. And
exactly.
I'm going to do something I have never done before, ever. I'm going to give The Walking Dead, well, not The Walking Dead, I'm going to give Game of Thrones a mulligan. I'm going to say something nice about Game of Thrones. Prepare yourself. This is the one time I will ever say something nice about Game of Thrones.
Oh boy, get out your cameras, folks.
At least Game of Thrones had the courtesy of being unfinished by the time season 5 ended and season 6 continued. Ah, God, I think I just vomited on my Spider-Verse. I say that because The Walking Dead, as far as I am aware, it was almost already finished by the time this series met its conclusion. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. By the time the series decided to continue moving the damn show forward. So, there is no excuse for why it decided to go so above and beyond to change things to the point where things are basically unrecognizable from the original story. I do not know what this show is. I don't know who these characters are. I know that the comic had its own identity, but this show, it decided to be serious. And then it decided to have a cartoonish bad guy with a fucking with a goddamn eye patch. The only thing missing was the mustache. And the only thing missing was the mustache and the little person's sidekick. And then you had the cannibals, and then you had Jesus Christ for some reason, and then you had Negan, and then you had a CGI tiger that the internet fucking cried over, even though it's a computer-generated image, and then you had Coral getting his eye fucked, both literally and metaphorically, and then getting murdered for no reason, and now Andrew Lincoln is gone. Is he dead? I don't know. Is he alive? Who the fuck cares? He's coming back for a prequel, along with Michonne for some reason. I don't know. Fuck you, give us money.
It's so disrespectful, and they just keep milking this thing for all its money. They keep making all these stupid like spin-off series. They just announced Tales from The Walking Dead, and they just how many seasons does Fear the Walking Dead have? I lost track. I didn't watch anything past the first season because it was atrocious. It's so pointless. They should have just stuck to the story and stuck to the core characters. They shouldn't have included Daryl, in my opinion, because I used to like him, but that was when I was younger and, quite frankly, more stupid. But now he's just plot armor. He's basically the Frank Miller Batman of The Walking Dead. And geez, I mean, I can't stress how disrespectfully dumb this show is, and how much more disrespectfully dumb this show has become over the years.
I gotta be honest. If there was ever a reason that I feel like the reason kept Norman Reedus as Daryl Dixon in this show, it's not because he's a good, compelling character. They're trying to get money out of the fan service that they get just from having him around. I mean, I'll give credit where it's due. I stayed watching The Walking Dead up until season 3 because of Daryl. But then when it looked like the dude was gonna leave with that racist piece of shit brother of his, that's when I thought, okay, no, I can't fucking do this. And then the governor, and then him nearly attempting to schmape Maggie, and Andrea existing. Oh god, Andrea. I haven't even talked about Andrea. No, I'm not going to go there.
We haven't touched on her. No, we haven't touched on her.
We are not. We are not going to talk. We are not going to go there. No. We are not going to go there. No, if we do, we are going to be here fucking forever.
Yeah, and we're already killing enough time as it is, man. We need to focus.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, let's move on to the next things. Sebastian.
Okay. Okay, I think we got time for at least one more thing. I wanted to talk about Ms. Marvel, since the series is now currently on Disney Plus and is the highest rated show on Disney Plus at the moment. Very well deserved, in my opinion. The show is fucking perfect. But instead, I wanted to talk about my favorite Spider-Man storyline of all time. And anyone who knows me, they know that Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. Not just Marvel, but in general. And there was one storyline that ended up becoming the biggest influence, not just for Spider-Man, but for me personally as a comic book reader, and one that I never expected to be as amazing and brutally perfect as this was. Well, I say perfect, but I say more on the lines of it was amazing and it left a huge impact. Could it have been better? Maybe, but it inspired arguably the greatest Spider-Man story ever made, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That's right. I'm going to be talking about the originals Into the Spider-Verse, the original Spider-Man Spider-Verse. Not Spider-Geddon, not whatever the new Spider-Verse is going to be called, not Into the Spider-Verse, just simply plain Jane Spider-Verse. And I have a lot to say about this. It is my favorite storyline of all time. I love this story. I have every single issue saved up into one. It is, oh god damn it, Play Mary Jane Spider-Verse. Thank you for that, Kate. It is easily, without a doubt, the greatest comic book story I have ever read in my life. But some of you are wondering, but I've seen Into the Spider-Verse. Isn't that basically the same thing? No, motherfucker! And I will explain to you why. Let me give a discussion here, though. Let me give a disclaimer here, though. Into the Spider-Verse is the greatest animated movie ever made. I am not even going to argue that in any medium. That is the best story ever made in animation, not just Spider-Man, but in general. That movie is perfect, and I will have no one tell me otherwise. As an adaptation of the Spider-Verse story, it really isn't one. Let me explain. So the story of Into the Spider-Verse differs so much from the actual Spider-Verse story in the sense that it only took the multiversal aspect of the Spider-Verse and they basically gave it the name. If anything, it kind of looks like we're going to get something similar with the sequels to the Spider-Verse movie, but nothing similar to what the actual comic was, which is a multitude of different Spider-Men being hunted down by a group of vampiric monsters called the Inheritors. One of which, Morlun, was a villain in Spider-Man's past who fought off against Peter Parker, but failed to kill him as he was trying to do so. These people are a bunch of bloodthirsty creatures who are trying to kill each and every single spider person from each and every different universe in order to gain what is called their totem. By killing a spider, you gain their totem, and by getting their totems, you each grab another piece of the spider multiverse and are able to take control over them and are able to basically feast upon them and live for all eternity. And as you can imagine, a lot of spider people get basically wasted in this storyline, including but not limited to Shakespeare Spider-Man, who tragically passes away in the first few pages of the story.
May you rest in peace.
Yes, there is a Shakespeare Spider-Man, and we are all very, very sad to know that he passed away. But there's also other different Spider-Men, and many of which gathered together to become a spider team? What do you call a group of spiders?
A nope.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very true answer right there. So, so a whole bunch of different spider people gathered together, including but not limited to Peter Parker from Universe 616, Superior Spider-Man, aka Doc Ock Spider-Man, because this is the Spider-Man that ended up switching places between a dying Dr. Octopus and Peter Parker, and now his subconscious is inside of Peter Parker's body, but is still technically Dr. Octopus. Miles Morales from the Ultimate Universe, Ghost Spider, well, at that time known as Spider-Gwen, she would not be called Ghost Spider until the end of this comic, ironically, when they gave her the name. Spider-Pig, Spider-Man Noir, and a whole bunch of other different superheroes who happen to be spider-related in some capacity, including one of my personal favorites, Miguel O'Hara, as Spider-Man 2099.
And don't forget Silk, who I am a huge fan of.
Oh, you like Silk. I think I know exactly why you like Silk, you perverted human being.
Yes, I do.
Yep, he's not even going to deny it. My god, he actually does know why Silk is a bit of a character in this story. Baby ears, cover your ears. She and Peter Parker have this sort of symbiotic connection where if they stay together for too long, they get this urge to
Mate! They got
Lay
to
eggs.
mate!
Lay eggs.
Yeah. Yeah, they basically do the thing that James Cameron was going to do in his Spider-Man script where Peter Parker was going to do like a mating ritual with Mary Jane for some reason.
You guys are fucking children. I hope you know that.
Sorry, you were saying, we didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you basically said what I was going to say, but okay. So yeah, Silk is there too, and we also have Jessica Drew, aka Spider-Woman, Mary Mayday Parker, who is also a spider person. She is actually Spider Girl in her universe, where she ended up becoming Spider-Man, and if I'm not mistaken, her family ends up getting murdered by the Inheritors, but she ends up surviving along with her baby brother. A variation of Spider-Man, who in that universe is actually his Aunt May, and another variation of Spider-Man, but in that universe, first of all, the world has been completely destroyed, and the surviving Spider-Man from that universe is actually Uncle Ben.
Yeah, that's right. That was an interesting twist.
Oh my goodness. There's also the Cosmic Spider-Man, who is built up as basically being the most powerful Spider-Man in any multiverse ever, and he ends up getting destroyed almost as quickly as possible. You have so many. Oh, and they also bring back the Spider-Mobile, because yes, the Spider-Mobile has to be canon again. And we also are introduced to the Spider-Man from the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon that Drake Bell was the voice of before he became a criminal. And he, alongside Miles Morales, go into the world of the Spider-Man 1960s cartoon, where, yes, that Spider-Man from the 1960s cartoon, where they run into him, and in his old-timey fashion, they all find out that Miles Morales is a black kid who happens to be Puerto Rican, and at first, it kind of looks like 1960s Spider-Man is about to say something that's not very politically correct. And it turns out, though, that this Spider-Man is actually not racist. He was just concerned because, wait a minute, you're a child? Well, I'll be. I can't believe it. You're a child, but you're still as strong as all of us. How fantastic it is to have you here with us. Wow, good thing I did not need to cancel 1960 Spider-Man for being racist. It could have happened, but it didn't. There's also variations of Spider-Man that are aware that the Spider-Man movies exist. Yes, the Spider-Man movies by Sam Raimi. And they also talk about the fact that there was also a Spider-Man movie that was starring another actor who was also British. Yeah, like, I'm not going to talk too much about the actual story here because the story is just so long and so complicated, but basically the main gist of it is that it's basically a multiversal time travel story. Well, not time travel. It's a multiversal it's a multiversal fight to the death with a bunch of different surviving Spider-Men needing to band together to save themselves from total destruction. Because once they all go, there is not going to be any more spider people living in this universe, or that universe, or any universe for that matter. And it is a very tenseful story, and there's a lot of deaths in this comic. A lot of spider people bite the dust, literally and figuratively. And it can get pretty intense. Like, this is the most intense Spider-Man story I have ever read, and it does not hold back on anything. It can be funny and it can be silly, but when it wants to be violent and cruel, it goes as hard as any comic I have ever read.
Oh yeah, I can confirm. I think you and I read the same storyline, and holy shit, it is so dark and so intense, man. I was like scared. I was scared to turn the page at some point because a character that I liked, I was afraid that they were gonna die.
Oh yeah, I mean, in the first 30 pages alone, at least 10 different Spider-Men end up dying.
Man.
Yes.
PTSD. I just got Vietnam flashbacks.
Good lord. And trust me, more of them keep on dying, and it all becomes a matter of how the fuck are we going to survive this? Because these guys are indestructible. Because the thing about the Inheritors is that they're not only are they vampires, they're also indestructible. If you kill one of them, they will literally clone another one of them back, and with the same subconscious and memories. Don't ask me how that works. I'm not a fucking comic book writer. I cannot half-ass things to make sense for my story. But yeah, let's just pretend that they can make clones, and each and every one of these clones has the same exact memories and the same exact personality and the same exact subconscious of the other person. That's actually how they are defeated in the sequel series to Spider-Verse, but that's not for this particular topic. With this particular story, it becomes a very tense and very epic thrill ride of every single Spider-Man basically fighting at their best, not to save the world, not to save the universe, but to save themselves from persecution. And not persecution, annihilation. It's basically the speech from Independence Day. They are fighting for their right to live. And it is one that I legitimately cannot recommend enough. Like, if you can handle dark subject matter and characters basically being wasted left and right, normally I would be against stories where characters get killed off willy-nilly. This is one of the few where I can make the exception of, just because it's not doing so for shock value. It does so to illustrate a point.
Right.
It is absolutely crazy. If any of you have any questions about it and how it compares to the movie, feel free to let me know.
Honestly, I not really. I have the comic. I have like the the paperback edition that includes all the tie-ins and everything. So yeah, I know what happens and then the major plot points of that story and yeah, it gets dark and also let's not forget about the superior Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you basically need to accept it with a grain of salt. That if you want to read the story, you need to accept that Superior Spider-Man is a thing. And many fans were not willing to do that because they were at the time that this happened. Dan Slott, the writer of Spider-Man, at the time for issue 700, ended that particular issue with Doc Ock, after having a change of heart following a speech that Spider-Man gives him following their altercation, says that I will continue your legacy, but I will do it better. I will prove to the world that I am the superior Spider-Man. That was like before the Captain America Hell Hydra thing. This was the most controversial comic book panel ever at the time. And Dan Slott, who, bless the man, he's one of my favorite writers, ended up sticking to his guns and continued that storyline until it met its conclusion with the subconscious of Peter Parker basically fighting back for control of his body, which is something that was also loosely adapted in the 2017 Spider-Man Current 2 show that's still better than that stupid Spectacular Spider-Man TV series. This actually
Fuck
was...
you.
I don't give a shit. This was one of the moments that, in my opinion, truly showed that anything can happen in the world of Spider-Man. No matter how ludicrous or how crazy it may sound, this is one of the biggest things to ever happen in the Spider-Man mythos, and it led to something as huge as this. I honestly did not expect anything to happen in this story. It was one of the few times I got surprised at every page, no matter what happened. I, I legitimately cannot recommend this shit enough. It's crazy, it's insane, it's violent, but it can also be funny and it can also be heartbreaking. Oh my goodness, so much heartbreak and so many character deaths. But it doesn't fetishize anything, and it doesn't treat anything lightly. Oh, and in case you guys are wondering, yes, uh, Spider-Man is in this series as well.
I completely forgot about him, but yes, holy shit, he is.
Yes, along with Leo Pardon. And guess what? All of his dialogue in this comic is in Japanese, but translated in English. So, in universe, he speaks in Japanese, but everyone has to listen to him speaking, and we, the audience, are basically having everything translated into English.
Nice.
Good lord, this series is incredible. Oh my god! And by the way, because I wanted to bring this up, allow me to read a little snippet from you. This is a discussion between two different Spider-Men who are talking about this. And each and every one of them is talking about how each and every Spider person is different. Well, guess we all think that we're the Peter Parker. Nah, I met a guy named Komori who's a Spidey from Japan. Weird. There's like 4 or 5 Japanese Spider-Men. Why is that? Why not? Oh god, I hope I'm not racist, Spider-Man. Hey, you know what's really weird? One Spider-Man would not stop singing show tunes. Yeah? I ran into one trying to teach me English. Alright, one of them was unmasked and I swear, he looked just like the guy from Seabiscuit. Really? I think I saw the guy from the Social Network over there. Ooh, he was good. Come on, I'm done. You ready? Yeah, but wait, how are we different? See what I mean?
Ooh.
It's this shit right here that just says, like, you can be super serious, but you can also be self-aware and have fun.
I can tell. You know, that's just that's really embodies the core of Spider-Man.
Plus the fact that they basically name drop the movies that both of these different actors were on just confirms that in this universe, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man were fighting alongside Miles Morales and Earth 616 Spider-Man. So that makes me happy.
Yep. And hopefully this will they'll do a live action Spider-Verse movie. I mean, we kind of got that with No Way Home, but I'd like to see like a larger adaptation where they explore even more iterations of the character.
Possibly.
Like what? Like what? Adam Scott as Spider-Man?
Spider UK, maybe Spider Punk. Perhaps they can do something controversial and explore Superior Spider-Man. Or hell, let's go like the zany route. Like they already did Groot, and people surprisingly love Groot. So let's go Spider Ham.
Yes. Speaking of Spider UK, if they ever do make either a live action or an animated version of him, let him be played by Henry Cavill, just so that we can justify saying we got Henry Cavill in the MCU because he's never going to go back to playing Superman.
Couldn't agree more. Let's do that just to be petty.
Yes. Oh, and also, just to make it better, shit, I know he's not going to want to do it, but okay, shit. What was the name of... No, he's not going to be... Damn it. I'm trying to think of what good black actors that I can think of who can play Spider-Punk. Just good black British actors who can play Spider-Punk. Because that would be fucking badass. Because, yeah, fun fact.
That would actually be pretty cool.
Miles Morales is not the only black Spider-Man. Fucking Spider-Punk is not only black, he's also British. And he literally fights a supervillain called not Kang the Conqueror, Kang the Conglomerator. He is literally fighting against the establishment.
Eat the rich.
Exactly. Quite literally. Eat the rich. And he fights with a fucking... Not just with his webs, but with a fucking guitar.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. I love the world of Spider-Man so much. You know what? Yeah, I was thinking somebody from Doctor Who. Maybe somebody from Doctor Who would be a good fit. Oh,
I can't name anybody. It's been a couple years since I've seen Doctor Who, but I wouldn't doubt that they're good actors. You know.
Oh, sure. Just hopefully not. Just let's keep Matt Smith out of it. He embarrassed himself enough with Morbius, and now he's going to embarrass himself even more with that god awful Game of Thrones prequel. But let's see what happens in the future. For now, though, do you guys have any last words you want to add before we wrap up?
Yes, comic books nowadays tend to be very overlooked. I don't really hear many people talking much about comics. So I would just say if you find one that looks good, like Sebastian said, just pick it up, give it a shot. If you don't like it, that's cool. There are enough comics in the world and on the market that will probably have something in store for you that you're going to love. You know, we love superhero comics for the most part, but there are also plenty of non-superhero comics. I can name, I think, Scott Pilgrim. There's The Walking Dead, obviously. There's a ton of indie comics. And also Marvel and DC also do other comics that are not related to superheroes. Just find something out there, a concept or an artist or a writer that you love. And, you know, support comics more often, because I would love to hear more people talking about comics more in the mainstream. I don't feel like I hear enough people talking about it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Diego. There is comics for everybody. Heck, you can even read graphic. I would say not an ongoing comic book series, but read graphic novels too, like Reckless. Because there are comics that are more than just superheroes. Like you can read crime books, like I said, from Reckless. And sorry that I had to cut this short for myself because I have to go. They're calling me to do something important, but to have this honorable mention before I go. My favorite indie comic is God Country. Basic pitch: imagine God of War on a but more cosmic scale, but the main character is an old man who suffers from Alzheimer's, but he picks up a sword, but not just any sword, the God of Swords.
Nice.
That sounds...
Yeah. And also I was going to mention Ultimate Spider-Man.
I love the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. I would have talked a little bit more, but we were pressed for time. I will say one last thing regarding the world of comics. If a comic is good, it will captivate you no matter if it's the first one in that series or the 50th one in that series. Comics are supposed to make a good first impression on whatever story that they're on, no matter if they're filler or if they're at the start of it. Whatever the story is, if it's as good as it claims it is, then it will captivate you enough to want to read more. And there's a lot of amazing comic books out there. I may be limited on my own choice because I tend to only read specific stories that I find interesting, but there is a comic out there for everyone, and all you need to do is grab a comic and start reading. Well, that about wraps up today's transmission. Thank you so much for listening to us, and before we sign out, I'd like to give a special shout out to our patrons, Win the Wings, Abigail Verzella, Chelsea A. Crandall, and Kate from KateCast Reviews. If you like what we do here and would love to see more, check out our YouTube channel for reviews, video essays, let's plays, and more. And if you want to help us keep the lights on in this scorching desert that we're currently living under, then check out our Patreon page for bonus content and exclusive rewards. I'm Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews signing out, and I'll see you on the Wasteland.